Hello! So I thought I'd do a video from my car because I haven't filmed one in my car for a while. I could have easily just as filmed this at home on my sofa like I normally do, but I thought a change of scenery might be good. So what is a support worker? See, I mentioned quite a lot on a lot of my videos that I work in care as a support worker. I've never really explained what exactly it is I do, and the reason is I never really felt it necessary. But to be honest, there are quite a lot of times when people just don't know, which is fair enough. You know, if you're not in that kind of line of work, you may not know what it is and what a support worker does. So first of all, a support worker is definitely not a doctor, and a support worker is not a nurse, although some support workers, me included, are trained and able to give out medication to people, and depending on what the requirement is, then you'll have training specific to that need. But that doesn't mean you're a nurse. That just means you are trained to give that medication to that person, or maybe just like a general medication thing if it's just like pills and stuff. So basically, we basically just support people to live their life. That's essentially it. It can be everything from helping them get out of bed. It can be using the toilet. A lot of people think, oh, if you work in care, it's basically just wiping arses all day. People, I mean, I do get that misconception from people a lot of the time, that basically all you're doing is we're looking after old people and wiping arses all day. From start to finish of the shift, you're wiping old people's bums. That could not be further from the truth. Okay, it is in there, but I don't work with old people. That's another thing that people find really weird when I say, you know, I'm a support worker, and they instantly think old people. It just doesn't register on a lot of people's brains that younger people, just normal adults, need support sometimes. Most people, I don't know if they just don't think about it, or they want to live in a world of ignorance where they just feel like, you know, people their age don't need support, you know, because, you know, you don't want to think about your own vulnerabilities and your own mortality or whatever. But it's the way it is. I have looked after elderly people, and it can be a laugh. Some of them can actually be quite fun to look after. I find that some older people have got quite a wicked sense of humour, and they're generally grateful that you're there. But that isn't generally where I specialise. I tend to look after people with learning disabilities. I've made a whole video about looking after people with learning disabilities, so I'm going to try not to repeat myself, but I can't actually remember what I said in that, so there may be a little bit of overlap. But people then be like, oh, they don't know what that is. They call it learning. There's a difference between a learning difficulty and a learning disability, and this bothers me when people get the terminology wrong. It shouldn't bother me, but it does, because a learning disability is a disability. They are disabled in the fact that they have trouble learning, whereas a learning difficulty just means you have difficulty learning. In fact, I don't really ever use the term learning difficulty. I will always say learning disability, because their brain simply isn't wired to be able to learn certain things. But I say I've already made a video about that, so this is just a more general support worker role. But it could be anything. I mean, I've had jobs before where you just take people out for the day. They want to go somewhere, and maybe they're a bit worried or a bit concerned about going out on their own, or maybe they just wouldn't be able to handle it. I've taken people out who might be quite capable where they live in the environment. One of the things you have to do as a support worker is be prepared, plan ahead, and think about every eventuality, such as what might happen. For example, the memory card on your camera might suddenly get filled up because you forgot to check there was enough space on it, resulting in this huge jump cut. So where was I? I think I was talking about taking people out and saying that sometimes you're just taking people out for the day. If you're lucky and you get a good job as a support worker, basically just take people out for the day, wherever they want to go. It might be to the beach, it might be to a city like London or something, or wherever's near you, out shopping. It could be something as simple as doing the weekly food shop, or it might be a special day out to somewhere exciting like a theme park maybe, or some other kind of place. And you know, those are the good roles. That's why people keep coming back to this job. I mean, other jobs, I mean, the one I've got now, the guy I look after, he doesn't tend to want to do those sort of things. He likes his own space, which is fair enough. Everyone's different. But I'm not like going out on exciting day trips to different places, you know, where every day is like a day off, but you get paid for it. But it's fine. Every job is different. Sometimes as a support worker, you might look after people with challenging behaviour. Again, you'd need specialist training for that. Different behaviours require different methods to reduce the behaviours. You have to remember that challenging behaviour is normally a form of communication, but again, that's going more often to that rather than what a support worker actually does. But yeah, it's very varied. It could be as simple as helping prepare a meal. Quite often in places you might make a food planner, a menu for the week, because some people may not know what to cook for themselves each meal. They might overwhelm them. You know, breakfast, lunch, dinner every day might be a little bit much for them. So, you know, you sit down together and you discuss it. Okay, what do you want for breakfast on these days? What do you want for lunch? What do you want for dinner? And then you plan out a menu. You go to the shop, you get what they want, and then they know what they're having each day. They like the comfort and the security of knowing it's all done and planned, but you obviously do it together, so they have an input. But other people, they're perfectly happy just to get the food themselves. They might make it up each day. They might just do their own weekly shop, or they might be the other extreme and they have no input at all. So everyone is different, and there's no two similar roles. The thing is to say, well, you know, what is a support worker? I think that maybe that's one reason people get confused, because I could be a support worker in a place for years and years and years, get really comfortable knowing the people, knowing the role, what they like, what they don't like, how I can support them, how they can do things on their own. You go somewhere else and it's completely different. You're starting all from scratch. Every time you're working with a new person, you're starting from the very beginning again, because you don't know that person. You don't know what they like, what they don't like. You don't know what they need support with, what they don't need support with. I've discussed this again more in my video on how to work with people with learning disabilities. So I'm going to try not to repeat myself, but there is going to be a little bit of overlap. But you're just supporting people to lead their lives. And a lot of people, another thing I hear from people quite a lot is they say that, oh, you never had people like this when I was growing up. You know, you see these people that need help and they're going out. Sometimes they look quite obvious, you can spot them a mile away, and other times you would never know the difference. And I hear that a lot, saying, oh, you know, why is there so many people with learning disabilities now, or autism or Down syndrome? I'm just picking those three because they're the three that most people have heard of. But the reason is, up until, say, like the 90s, these people were put away in institutions. They had no individuality, almost no rights. They were all treated as the same. It was basically a nightmare scenario for them to live in. So if you're looking after a slightly older person who grew up in the institution system, they will behave very differently to someone who grew up only knowing independence. If they were born from the 90s onwards, they would only know that the systems in place tried to give them independence and to live the life that they want to live, whereas someone a bit older that grew up in the institution system, they're gonna maybe be a little bit afraid of going out on their own and living their own life and being independent, because they don't know how. They've never been shown, so they will need extra support. And maybe for them, being in a home is better for them, because they just simply don't know how to live independently. You also see this in the staff. Older staff who have been in the job for a while will have trained and got their experience under the institution system. And I don't mean this as any disrespect to them, because they're basically doing the job the way they've always done it. But you can tell the difference. You can spot the difference. Someone who got all their experience and knowledge under the institution system, and then trying to work in the individual support system, where it's all personalised and centred around that person, and the staff struggle to cope because it's a complete polar opposite to what they know. But some of them adapt, and to be honest, some don't. I've seen it. I've seen some people not adapting. It's as simple as that. They try their best, but when you've been trained in a certain way and you've worked a certain way for so many years, and then suddenly be told everything you know is wrong, everything you're doing is wrong, and you have to do it completely differently, it's difficult. I'm now heading to a garden centre. This is not this particular garden centre, I'm just saying garden centres in general. I mean, this is Minehead Garden Centre, it's tiny. But where I used to live, before I moved to Somerset, there was a lot of big garden centres around, and they are just full of people, like support workers taking people out for the day, because they get to look at the flowers. There's often a nice cafe. Cafes are always a good place to take people, because it's simple. You go to a cafe, you get a drink, maybe a bite to eat. Some garden centres have got pet shops. People like looking at the animals. Garden centres are, you know, I say not this. I don't know about this one so much, because it is quite small here. I mean, there is a little cafe, but where I used to live, I mean, you know, that was like a big thing. But you don't want to overdo it though. I didn't buy anything from there. I always forget how small this place is and how limited the stock is. Maybe I'm just spoilt by where I used to live and all the large garden centres there. I don't know, but it did remind me of something else, and that's money. Being a support worker, supporting people with money. Some people are totally cool with you helping them out with their money. Again, it varies. Goes from them being completely independent of their money to you having to literally do everything, like collect the money from the bank, check it's all correct every day, and everywhere in between. Money can cause a lot of tension and problems with some people, because they've kind of got an awareness of what money is, but they don't have the responsibility and the knowledge to look after it. Although you could say that about a lot of people, to be honest. A lot of people get into financial difficulties, so it's not just people you need to look after that have this problem. Why is this turning? I'm looking for a particular shop, but I know it's along this road somewhere. Oh, here we go. So that is a big one. I mean, sometimes it's literally just standing there while they hand over the money, and I'm going the wrong way around this car park. Sometimes it's just sometimes it's just, you know, being there while they hand over the money, and sometimes it's doing it for them or encouraging them to get the money out and hand it over to the people in the shop. Most shop workers should be aware that people like that. One thing that does bother me, it's not so bad as it used to be, but like 10 years ago, shop staff would always speak to me and not the person buying whatever it is they're buying, and that used to really bother me. And I'm like, no, you know, can you talk to them please? You know, they're the customer, they're the one spending their money, they're the one buying stuff. Talk to them. You know, I will, you know, step in if I have to, That's the thing with support workers. You're supporting. You only step in if you have to step in. You don't do everything for the people. That's not a support worker. If you start doing everything for the person, then you start taking away their independence, you start taking away their confidence, and you just start taking away everything in general, really. You're trying to encourage the people to live their life their way, the fullest that they can live it, and you're just there if necessary, if needed. And you have to use judgment. Sometimes you think, oh, shall I step in? You know, they might be taking a long time to work something out, not just about money, but anything in particular. And sometimes it's very tempting just to be like, oh, I'll do it, you know, and you can't do that. You've really got to hold back. If they ask for help, they will ask for help, and that's fine. You step in, and sometimes you do have to use judgment. Again, everybody is different. You think, okay, they're not getting it, I need to step in and assist them. Assisting them or taking over, again, two very different things. But again, you'd have to know on the person you're with, and you'd have to know the situation. Are they going to appreciate you stepping in, or are they going to not like it? Sometimes they might just be in a bit of a grump. Sometimes it can cause quite a reaction, and other times they'd be really grateful because they were generally struggling and were generally too afraid to ask. So again, every person is different. That's what I was saying earlier. I don't know if that bit got caught on the camera or not when it cut, but you can be working with somebody for years, you can work in a house for years, and you get to know all those people. As soon as you work with different people, you're starting from the beginning. You're starting from scratch because you don't know that person. You don't know what they like and what they don't like. You don't know when is it a good time to step in and when is it a good time to stand back. You have to learn. And then once, you know, if they've had their day out, again, help them with their meal. They might be able to cook, but they might need help washing up, or it might be the other way around. You might have to do the cooking, they can wash up. It can be either way, or maybe you have to help with cooking and washing up, or maybe they can do it all, but they just need you there just to make sure. I've worked with several people where they can cook, but you just have to stand there just to make sure that it's all good. Like I was working with some people, and one person, he didn't cook his food properly, and I was like, you know, you need to cook it a little bit longer, and then he cooks it a little bit longer, and that's all I had to do. Whereas other people, you have to do everything, so it varies dramatically. And some people help them get to bed. Sometimes it's simple as time for bed and they can sort themselves out. Other times you have to do everything for them, from like running a bath and washing them, to drying them, getting them in their pajamas, into bed. Everyone is different. There are no two people the same. That's the point about it all being person-centered and supporting that person. Literally no two people are the same, which is why the old days of the old institutions were so bad, because it treated everyone the same. I mean, you could say, oh, you know, they're treating everyone equally. They're treating everyone equally badly. And then you get into the whole thing about, you learn about equality and diversity, and there's so many different things. I'm not going to get into all that. But basically, you've given everyone the opportunity to live their life the way they want to live their life, as safely as possible. Sometimes things just aren't possible. They want to do something, and then you try and work out a way for them to do it, and maybe it's just not possible to do it safely. So then you look at the next best thing. What is most similar to what they want to do, that's safe, that would still keep them happy, and then, you know, you go down the chain, and then eventually you'll find something that is possible for them to do, which they can do safely, and then everyone's happy. So most of the time, 99% of the time, there is a way to find a way of doing what that person wants to do in a way that they want to do it, in a way that is safe for them to do. Because a lot of people that I support with learning disabilities, they don't fully understand safety. That's a big issue. So you have to think, you know, are they going to be safe? Are they going to be responsible? And 99% of the time it is possible to find a way of them doing what they want to do. It's very rare that you have to actually turn around and say no and say this just isn't going to happen. It does happen, and you always try to avoid it, but again, if they cannot do what they want to do, then you have to support them to find the next best solution. What is most similar to that they want to do, which is still safe. I say it is rare. I mean, anything's possible, because more and more companies and organisations are now catering for people with disabilities and learning disabilities, whether it's a physical disability. I mean, I've been talking a lot about learning disabilities. I've worked with people with physical disabilities as well, but that's not where I specialise, but I have done it. And again, anything is possible if you're willing to look hard enough and think about the solution hard enough. If it's not about thinking about the problem, it's about thinking about the solution. How can I make this work? How can I make this happen? So that's a lot of what you're doing as well, because sometimes you'll be with people and they will come up with crazy ideas and you think, oh blimey, you know, how am I going to do this? And you might have to go away and think about it for a while. You know, don't make promises because you don't know. And you go away, maybe discuss it for some other people, call around some companies and organisations that might do that particular activity, and then figure out a way. And then you can go back to them and say, yeah, I've worked it out, we can do it. And then sometimes they've changed their mind and you're like, really? I've just gone to all this effort and you've changed your mind. That doesn't often happen. Normally when somebody's set on doing something, they're pretty much set on that. It could be anything. Like swimming's an easy one. Most swimming pools now have got facilities for people with disabilities. A lot of decent pools will have hoists and stuff. They might have separate classes for people with disabilities and have special trainers with them. So swimming's a relatively easy one. If someone wants to go swimming, that's a relatively easy thing to figure out. Horse riding, again, there's a lot of horse riding centres around. Again, they are used to dealing with people with kind of disabilities and stuff. Most horse riding facilities should be able to cater, so something like that shouldn't be too much of an issue. If someone wants to go skydiving, well, then you'd have to do a risk assessment on that. But most people, when they go skydiving, they're going to be attached to someone anyway. So, again, that could be a possibility. Something like scuba diving, for example, there's a few more risks involved, so you'd have to consider it. But I know people with disabilities or learning disabilities can do scuba diving, but again, there's a lot to learn. So if someone has a learning disability, you think, well, how can I make this safe? Maybe instead of the regulator, they have a full face mask, and then that makes it a little bit easier for them to breathe. And maybe instead of going in the ocean, you go into an enclosed space like a swimming pool or something, or a shallow pool, or snorkeling. That's a much safer option. There's always options. So again, you've got to look at the options and think, what can people do, what can they not do? And so most of the time it is possible to find a way, most of the time. But then it's the same with just normal life. Sometimes it's not possible to do something just in normal everyday life for a normal everyday person. Not that there is such a thing as a normal everyday person. So yeah, I hope that answers the question a little bit about what a support worker does. It's a lot of planning, a lot of sitting in doctors' offices. Not so much of my current job, but over the years, I've done this job for nearly 10 years now, and I have sat in so many doctors' surgery offices, waiting rooms. It's just an endless line of waiting rooms I've sat in, whether it's at doctors or at hospitals or a dentist or an opticians or some other medical facility. It's just, I don't know, it depends on the job, particularly if they've got quite a lot of health needs. At one point, I think I was just practically living in waiting rooms. So yeah, that is a big thing, medical thing, because again, it could be a lot of information there, and you need to relay that information back to the other staff in a way that they can understand. Because if the doctor's saying all this stuff, and then that could be the end of the line. If you're not there to help them, that's it. And the information goes no further. And especially if it's like medical, like medicine, dietary needs, whatever. So a lot of waiting rooms. If anyone is an experienced support worker, they will know there can potentially be a lot of waiting rooms. Anyway, I'm starting to waffle on now. Yeah, so I'm going to go now. I'm going to go into the shop, see what they've got in here. I'll see you later. Bye.